Hello all and welcome to another episode of the Kontakt Script Programmer. Today we're going to be looking at 4.11, which is the UI value editor. So we declare a UI value editor by calling it a name, giving it a minimum and a maximum value, and then giving it a display ratio. So this is a lot like a slider. So if any of this doesn't make sense, maybe jump to the slider tutorial, which was a little bit earlier on, and that should help you sort of make sense of the whole thing. So the display ratio, the value is divided by the display ratio for display purposes, but it doesn't actually change what the value is. You can also use value edit mode note names to display note numbers note names instead of numbers, which is what we're going to be doing in this first example. So in the first example, on initialization, we declare a UI value editor called test. It goes from 0 to 100, and instead of using the display ratio, we're going to use value edit mode note names. So this is going to give us a value editor box that we'll be able to scroll up and down, and it'll go from sort of C-2 all the way up to probably like A8, something like that, instead of just pure numbers. Okay, so instead of from 0 to 100. We're going to set the text for the test to nothing. So it's not going to have a name. It's just going to be displaying numbers. We're going to set the control parameter for a particular width and then move it around. In this second one, we're going to have an on note, which is going to change the test to the particular note we're playing. So we're going to be able to drag the value editor up and down, but if we hit a note, it's also going to tell us what note we're playing. So slightly different. In the second half, we're going to have in the second exercise rather, we're going to have a value editor called test that will go from 0 to 10,000, 1,000 at a time, which is going to mean that we will be able to show 3 decimal places. Okay, because that's the value there. Okay, so let's get started. For our very first one, on initialization, we're going to declare a UI value editor called test that goes from 0 to 100, and then we've got all caps value edit mode note names. We're going to set the text for test to nothing. We're going to set the control parameter to get UI ID test control parameter width. So this is just changing the width of it. It's going to need to be a little bit bigger because that's the way that we can make sure that we get everything in. And then on notes, we're going to change the test. So this is whenever you hit a note, it's going to change test to event note. And because we're displaying that event note in value edit mode note names, it's going to give us the name instead of just a number. So I get C-2. I can drag this up and down to get, there you go, so top of it's E6. So this is displaying numbers. Okay, it's actually taking in a value from 0 to 100. But it's just displaying them in note names. So if I open up my on-screen keyboard and I hit some numbers, or some keys rather, or even if I hit the keys down here, you can see the note changing as well. So part of a chord recognition device perhaps, or something that we could use to crank up just regular numbers. We don't actually even have to have this. We can have whatever we like. Now, normally these numbers are hidden unless we drag over it. We can change that by changing control parameter to the arrows being shown, which is the next element here, control parameter show arrows. So if we actually copy that in and we do control parameter show arrows, 0 is hide the arrows, which we can see no arrows occurring there, and 1 will be show the arrows, which we can see arrows get shown there. Okay, now the decimal place one, which is the second half of this explanation. So on initialization, we declare a UI value edit called test, and we're going from 0 to 10,000, 1,000 at a time. and we're going to set the text to test value and on, and we will see, because it's dividing that 10,000 by 1,000, we're going all the way up to 10, but in decimal places at a time, which is another great way to look at it if you wanted something a little bit more, more exacting perhaps. But that's a value editor for you. You can also type into it what you'd like. So I typed in something way too high, but type in 6.3, whatever we wanted that way. This is one way to dodge the floating point issue, in that we can just use regular variables, but then just divide them so that the result is a little bit different. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in 4.12.